Where were the big successes, and in what ways was this a different Senate than the last Senate?
I think everyone in this room who works with the legislature knows it was a major change. Okay. It was a new day.
In what ways?
Well, first of all, the 21 vote rule on day one. That's a new day. That rule has been in cement for 70 years.
Right.
It's a major change, and sometimes when you actually bring about major change, people then say, oh, that was really nothing. But until you bring it about, that will never happen.
Right.
And so changing the blocker bill from 21 to 19 totally changed the tenor of the session.
Well, let's talk about that. So we did a calculation on this. You may know, Governor, that we did in the middle of May, we did an analysis of, at that point, the more than 700 bills that had passed the Senate. Only about 30 had passed with fewer than 21 votes. I mean, on one level, you can say, well, it really didn't have that big a consequence, although the bills in which it mattered were the big bills.
Well, and that was the point I always made in past sessions. Most of what we do is bipartisan, and this year we passed nearly 1,200 bills, and we still were under 30, I think, on bills that passed along partisan lines. But parties and people get elected to drive legislation that the majority of voters want. That's the result of elections.
Right.
And we were always stymied. In essence, the Democrats had the same veto power the governor had in the Senate. They could stop bills from ever being brought to the floor. And so when you look at the bills, open carry, campus carry, when you look at A through F, when you look at our ethics bill, when you look at population capping, spending it at population inflation, some of these key bills, 30 in total, I just mentioned a few, that our base wanted, our voters, and our voters have a right to get their agenda passed, and it was always blocked. So when you say it was only 30, it was a big 30. Right,
and you're convinced that had it not been for the change in the rules at the beginning, those bills would not have passed. We might be coming back in special session.
Brian Birdwell would still be looking for a couple of votes for campus carry, or Craig Estes for open carry, and the other significant legislation we passed. So that's one factor. The second thing that again, the people here in this room who work with the legislature know full and well, it removed the tension. Instead of a Republican senator being frustrated for 5 months trying to get 1 or 2 more votes, I've been there for 8 years. That was not the issue. A Republican now knew, if I can convince 18 of my other Republicans, I can get my bill passed out of the Senate. The second thing it did that had a major change to the new day, because there was no blocker by the Democrats, our chairmen were very careful about what got out of committee. I don't know what the final numbers are, but with about a month ago, we had passed out 35% fewer bills. I saw a Chronicle story that we passed the fewest bills in years. That's a good thing. We don't need a lot.
Some perceive that to be actually not a good thing. Well, the Senate didn't do enough, or the Senate didn't do as much as it says it did.
When we go off these boxes here, you'll see, we did what the people wanted us to do and what we wanted to do. So it took out the tension. It allowed us to finally pass legislation that's been bottled up forever, as long as I've been there and beyond that. And the Democrats, who I thought, look, our freshmen did a great job, they stepped up. All of our new freshman chairmen did a great job, stepped up. Jay Nelson, I think, was the best finance chair we've ever had, maybe in the history of the state, did a great. So our veterans stepped up into those new roles. But I will say the Democrats as well, I wouldn't say stepped up, but they worked with, they understood the results of elections. Elections have consequences, and they worked with us. And before, they didn't have to, Evan, if you were a Republican, I know this is role-playing, but if you're a Republican senator, they never had to work with you. Just say, I'm blocking your bill. Well, now they couldn't stop it. So, Evan, would you consider this amendment? Can I work with you on this? So there was little tension. There were no dust-ups, no flare-ups. Everything that a few people said, particularly on the left, and a few maybe Republicans said, none of that materialized. So the new day was the 19-vote rule. The new day was we reduced the Democrat chairs, as I said I would, from 6 to 2.
6 to 2.
We got all of our major legislation to the House by late April. And we brought this thing in on the deck, the smooth landing, with the earliest sine die in, if not history, in the last 50 years.
Well, at least in modern history. But